Hello and thanks for joining us for a late night newscast coming to you from Arirang's news centre in Seoul. I'm Mark Broom. We start with the anti-government protests that took place in Seoul earlier, and we're glad to report that no major clashes broke out between protesters and police. The demonstrators stuck to their pledge to hold a peaceful march, and police responded in kind, focusing much of their attention on controlling traffic around the City Hall and Gwanghwamun area. Now, organisers say some 40,000 people from over 100 civic groups held protests over the course of around 8 hours between midday and 8:30 p.m. local time. Police put the size of the crowd a lot lower, though, closer to 14,000. 500 religious leaders held a prayer session prior to the gathering, and opposition lawmakers were also present to call for a peaceful protest. The latest rally was a follow-up to one held last month to protest the government's labour reform plans and its decision to reintroduce state-issued history textbooks. Last month's demonstration turned violent as some protesters attacked police buses. The police responded with pepper spray and water cannons for that protest, with a farmer in his 60s falling into a coma after getting hit with a cannon. Now, President Park Geun-hye arrived back in Seoul on Saturday after wrapping up her 7-day tour that took her to France and the Czech Republic. In Paris, President Park attended the UN Climate Change Conference, where world leaders put their heads together for a successor treaty to the 1997 Kyoto Protocol. And during her 4-day stay in Prague, the South Korean leader held her first summit with the Visegrad Group, which is a regional economic bloc comprised of the Czech Republic, Hungary, Poland and Slovakia. There, President Park paved the way for Korean businesses to take part in Central Europe's booming infrastructure market valued at $43 billion. The UN Security Council will meet next week on human rights in North Korea. The US mission to the United Nations says senior UN officials will brief the Council on the situation next Thursday. 8 Council members, including France, New Zealand and Britain, supported the US decision to revive discussions on the alleged rights abuses in North Korea. The Security Council last discussed the issue 1 year ago. Now, China, which is pretty much North Korea's only major ally, has said that it would be a bad idea for the Security Council to hold such a meeting. There's growing focus on the issue after a UN Commission of Inquiry detailed wide-ranging abuses in North Korea last year. The report said it found abuses without parallel in the modern world. They include murder, enslavement, torture, imprisonment, rape, forced abortions, and more. Now, a Korean woman who was forced to work in a Japanese military brothel during World War II has died. A civic group supporting the victims of sexual slavery says Choi Gap-sun passed away in the early hours of Saturday morning. She was 96 years old. Choi's passing means just 46 of the victims registered with the government are still alive. Korea wants Japan to issue a formal apology to the victims and compensate them for their immense suffering, but Tokyo is yet to do so. The two countries have agreed to try and resolve the issue as quickly as possible. Samsung has agreed to pay Apple $548 million for copying its iPhone designs. According to court filings released by Foss Patents, the Korean firm has stated that it will pay Apple the money to settle their patent dispute. Samsung says it will remit payment within 10 days of receiving an invoice from Apple. However, Samsung has stated that it reserves the right to ask for the money back in the event any future court findings invalidate the judgment. The settlement pertains to an Apple lawsuit that was decided nearly 5 years ago now. The Korean smartphone maker was found guilty of infringing a number of Apple patents, including one covering its pinch-to-zoom feature on the iPhone. Now, the Islamic State group has called the 2 shooters that killed 14 people in Southern California this week supporters who voluntarily answered their call. US authorities are now viewing the case as an act of terrorism and are looking into the chances the 2 might have been in contact with the terror group. Song Ji-sun has the details.
We pray to God to accept them as martyrs. Through their official propaganda radio station on Saturday, Islamic State militants described the California shooters as supporters of the terror group. This means the ISIS did not give a direct order, but the couple answered their call on their free will. Tashfin Malik had posted a pledge of allegiance to the ISIS leader on her Facebook account using a different name while the shooting was happening, and her husband, Saeed Rizwan Farouk, had earlier pledged allegiance to ISIS on the day of the attack. Following these leads, the FBI has taken over the investigation into the shooting in San Bernardino that killed 14 and left 21 others wounded, calling it an act of terrorism.
As of today, based on the information and the facts as we know them, we are now investigating these horrific acts as an act of terrorism.
The couple burst into a holiday party for the county health department Farouk worked for and opened fire on the victims, who were mostly his colleagues. The two met in Saudi Arabia through an online dating service, with Malik entering the U.S. last year after marrying Farouk. They had a 6-month-old daughter. The FBI uncovered about 5,000 rounds of ammunition, parts for guns and holsters, and pipe bombs in their townhouse. The two each reportedly came in contact with Islamic militant groups, but neither were on any U.S. watch lists.
He was real quiet. He didn't talk that much. He was always reading Quran, holy book, or if he wasn't reading Quran, he was always leading a prayer.
For the first time in nearly 100 years, the New York Times yielded its front page in favor of an editorial on Saturday, calling for a drastic reduction in the availability of guns in the U.S. The Daily said it was a moral outrage and a national disgrace that civilians can legally purchase weapons designed specifically to kill people with brutal speed and efficiency. 송지선, Arirang News.
Now, China is bracing itself for another blanket of smog this weekend after a couple of days of relative respite from the toxic haze. The problem is getting so bad that senior members of China's Communist Party will hold an emergency meeting in the coming days to discuss countermeasures. The latest bout of heavy smog is forecast to hang over the Chinese capital until next Wednesday. Beijing was on the second highest smog level of orange throughout November, with the exception of a single day. Readings of tiny poisonous particles known as PM2.5 topped 900 micrograms per cubic meter in Beijing last week. That's almost 40 times the level considered safe by the World Health Organization. Vehicle exhaust emissions, coal-fired power generation and winter heating have been blamed for most of the pollution in northern China. Now, since its launch in March, Korea's first multipurpose satellite has undergone testing processes, readying it for commercial service. With its ultra-high-resolution camera, the satellite can provide clear images of the Earth's surface day and night. Park Se-young has a story.
This is a clear image of New York City's Central Park. And here we see Palm Islands, the largest artificial island in the world, and Burj Khalifa, the world's tallest skyscraper, both in Dubai. These images from around the world were taken last month by Arirang 3A, Korea's first domestically developed multipurpose satellite. According to the Ministry of Science, ICT and Future Planning, the satellite, which launched in March, will provide commercial services starting this month. The satellite underwent 8 months of performance inspections and is now optimized for use. Equipped with powerful optical telescopes, Arirang 3A can provide clear images of any object on Earth, providing that the object is larger than 55 centimeters in diameter. With its temperature-sensitive infrared sensors, the satellite can also monitor changes on the Earth's surface day and night, regardless of the weather. High-resolution images provided by the satellite will be used for various purposes, like observing environmental pollution and analyzing damage from forest fires. Korea is expected to gain competitiveness within the commercial satellite imagery market once it begins selling the images. Park Se-young, Arirang News.
Now, the popularity of Korean food, or K-food as it is sometimes called, is taking off all over the world. But experts say it will still be a while before Korean food becomes a truly globally recognized cuisine. Won Ji-yeon reports.
Here's a culinary school in central Seoul. Classes are diverse with students in their early 20s all the way to their 50s. And everyone is here for one reason: to become professionals in Korean cooking.
I'm a chef from New York City. I came here to learn Korean cuisines, so I can open a Korean restaurant when I go back to the States.
Culinary schools like these have become all the rage as food and cooking shows are dominating Korean television.
Many famous chefs and college professors from abroad have been coming to Korea to learn traditional Korean cuisine, and these numbers have increased by about 5 to 6 times more than last year.
Despite the growing appetite for Korean food around the world, food experts say Korea still has a long way to go to globalize its traditional dishes. The biggest reason was the lack of professional training courses for Korean cuisine. In fact, only 12 out of 108 culinary programs at Korean colleges offer Korean cooking classes.
There aren't enough culinary programs in Korea that offer expertise in Korean cuisine. I think we'll need about 70% of domestic culinary programs teaching Korean cooking classes in order to effectively globalize K-food.
Experts added that enlisting Korea's food traditions on UNESCO's list of World Heritage will also help Korean cuisine become a world favorite. Won Ji-hyun, Arirang News.
Looks delicious. Now, we're going to take a brief look at the weather before we go. And it's going to feel very cold tonight across most of the central region. The overnight low will dip well below freezing in Seoul. Sunday will be partly cloudy, but it will feel fairly mild for the time of the year. With that, let's take a look at the weather around the world. Well, those are the stories we have for you at this hour. For more of the latest, don't forget to check out the website, arirang.com/news. Have a great rest of the weekend. Goodbye.